People think cheating starts in the bedroom. They're wrong. It starts in the small things: a secret password, a hidden card, and a husband stupid enough to trust his wife. I used to think we were the kind of couple people envied. We had the nice apartment, the dinner dates, the little inside jokes that made strangers smile. 7 years together, and I thought we'd grown past the insecurities, past the suspicion. I used to brag that we were open about everything. I even told my friends she was the most transparent person I'd ever met. How ironic. It started with her phone. She'd always been careless before, leaving it on the counter, unlocked, face up. But then one night, I noticed the screen flash with a message, and she flipped it over so fast, the sound of it hitting the table made my heart jump. I didn't say anything. People deserve privacy, right? That's what I told myself, even though something inside me whispered, "You just saw the first crack." After that, she started changing little habits, passwords on everything. A new phone case with a cover, different purse, smaller wallet. She began staying late at work, saying she had to handle invoices or reports that apparently couldn't wait until morning. She never came home smelling like another man, but she didn't smell like home either. She smelled like distance. I used to sit on the couch at night waiting for her, pretending to watch TV. I'd glance at the clock, the minute hand dragging through another useless hour. When she finally came in, she'd smile like nothing had happened, kiss me on the cheek, and tell me she was exhausted. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. Because believing her meant believing I hadn't wasted 7 years. The first real sign came from her laptop. She left it open one morning when she rushed out for work. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. But the email notification popped up right in front of me. Transfer confirmation. I only caught the subject line before the screen locked itself. My stomach tightened. I didn't even know she had an account that needed transfers. When she came home, I asked casually, "Hey, did you move some money today?" She froze for half a second. Half a second. That's all it took. Then she smiled and said, "Just paying a bill." I smiled back. But something had changed. A small, invisible thread between us had snapped, and once it broke, I started seeing everything differently. That night, I lay awake beside her. Her breathing was soft, steady, peaceful. I stared at the ceiling and thought about all the things I'd ignored. How she'd started carrying her phone to the bathroom. How she'd closed her laptop the moment I entered the room. How she'd stopped asking me to help with anything related to money. She used to let me handle everything: bills, groceries, vacations. But suddenly, she wanted financial independence. I remember laughing and saying, "Sure, babe, go for it." I didn't realize I'd just handed her a perfect hiding place. I started noticing her spending patterns too. A new perfume I hadn't bought, clothes from stores she never liked before, dinners she didn't post about. She'd come home full but still tell me she was starving. Small inconsistencies, easy to explain individually, impossible to ignore together. I told myself I was paranoid. I'd never been the jealous type. But when you love someone long enough, you know their rhythm, and hers was changing. She used to hum while brushing her teeth. She stopped. She used to send me good morning texts when she left early. Those stopped too. Instead, she started leaving sticky notes on the counter. Quick, shallow reminders. Out early, back late, don't wait up. They felt like receipts for absence. Then came the password conversation. One night she asked if I could help her set up a new savings account online. She said she wanted to start putting money aside for us. I helped her open it, entered all the details, even linked our joint account. When it came time to set the password, she smiled and said, "I'll handle that part." I didn't think much of it. We'd been together long enough that trust felt automatic. I typed the recovery email, hers, and hit save. Looking back now, that was the moment it all began. The moment I gave her digital freedom and she turned it into a secret life. Weeks went by. She became more distant, more polished, more deliberate. She'd text me sweet things randomly, almost like she was overcompensating. "Miss you. You're the best. Dinner soon?" It felt rehearsed, like a cover-up. I started cataloging them in my mind, as if every emoji carried hidden guilt. Then one evening, while she was in the shower, I walked past the bathroom counter and her phone lit up. A preview flashed across the screen. Not a name, just a number, and the words, "Got it." Same as before? My pulse quickened. I wanted to open it, but I couldn't. I wasn't ready to face what I already knew. When she came out, wrapped in a towel, she smiled at me like nothing had happened. I smiled back. That night, I dreamed about bank accounts and passwords, about money slipping through my fingers like water. The next morning, I watched her leave for work. She kissed me goodbye, said she'd call later. The moment the door closed, I felt the silence hit. I sat down, stared at her laptop, and tried to shake off the guilt that was building in my chest. I wasn't the kind of man who snooped, but I was becoming one. I opened the lid, half expecting it to be locked. It wasn't. The screen glowed with her desktop. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. Then I saw the browser icon, still showing a faint dot underneath. I clicked it. A blank tab. My heart sank. Then, almost mockingly, an auto-suggestion appeared in the search bar. Online savings account login. For a second, I couldn't move. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might hear it echo in the empty room. Then I closed the laptop, stood up, and walked away. I told myself this was paranoia, that people have private things, that I shouldn't ruin my marriage over curiosity. But as I looked around the apartment, the framed wedding photo, the dinner plates she'd picked, the scent of her perfume lingering in the air, a cold truth settled in. I already knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to prove it. That night, when she came home and asked what I'd done all day, I smiled and said, "Just caught up on some bills." She nodded, poured herself a glass of wine, and sat beside me like everything was fine. I watched her laugh at a show she wasn't even paying attention to. She looked beautiful, effortless, comfortable in her lies. And that was the moment I decided. I wouldn't confront her yet. I'd wait. I'd watch. I'd let her believe she was winning. Because I wanted to know exactly how deep her betrayal went before I tore her world apart. They say you never really know a person until they lie to you. I used to laugh at that, thinking it was something bitter people said to comfort themselves after a breakup. But now I know it's the only truth that matters. The day she lied, I started meeting the woman I'd actually married. When I think back to the beginning, it all feels like a movie I'd seen too many times. Familiar, comfortable, even warm in a way that makes you forget you're being tricked. We met at a friend's engagement party. She spilled wine on me and spent 10 minutes apologizing, her laugh bubbling like she couldn't control it. I remember thinking she was real, unfiltered, unguarded. That laugh would later become a weapon, the sound she used to make me feel small, like I was crazy for even suspecting anything. Our relationship grew fast. Within months, we were living together. She made the apartment feel alive. The smell of her cooking, her music playing while she cleaned, her clothes scattered everywhere like a storm of color. I thought it was chaos, but it was home. I remember telling my brother, "She's the one. I don't even need to think about it." I meant it. For years, I believed it. She wasn't always like the woman she became. She used to sit on the couch beside me with her legs tucked under her, drinking coffee, telling me about her day. She'd vent about work, about her boss, about the traffic. Every small frustration poured out like we were each other's diaries. That's what love felt like to me then, listening, even when it was boring. She made it easy to care. Maybe that's why it was so easy for her to destroy me. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but it was stable. I handled the finances, she handled the house. We both worked. We shared passwords, shared responsibilities, shared everything that mattered. Or so I thought. I used to leave my phone unlocked because I trusted her. She used to tell me I was too trusting. I thought she meant it lovingly. Maybe she meant it as a warning. When she first mentioned wanting her own savings, it didn't bother me. She said she wanted to feel independent, like she could contribute to our future instead of relying on me. I remember her exact words, "You're always doing everything for us." I want to do something too. It sounded sweet, selfless even. I smiled and told her to go for it. If I'd known that independent meant invisible, I might have thought twice. I remember setting up that account together. We sat at the kitchen table, the morning light spilling across the screen. She was in her robe, her hair messy, her voice soft. I typed in her name, our address, her details. It all felt normal, domestic, intimate even. When the site prompted for a password, she reached for the keyboard and said, "I'll make one I can remember." I didn't think anything of it. Why would I? It's a savings account, not a secret. I didn't notice the way she smiled when she typed it. A small, private smile that wasn't meant for me. A few months later, she started calling it her account. Not ours. I laughed when I noticed, joking, "You're really taking this independence thing seriously, huh?" She smiled, that same careful smile, and said, "It's just easier to manage this one myself." Easier for who? I didn't ask. It's strange, looking back. The lies weren't big at first. They were small, almost polite, like she was asking permission to betray me slowly. Every tiny omission became a stitch in a web I didn't even know existed. I remember one night she came home late from work, saying she'd gone for drinks with coworkers. I believed her, of course. Why wouldn't I? But later, when I hugged her, her perfume was different. Heavier, more floral, not the brand she always used. I mentioned it playfully. She said, "Maybe I sprayed too much." I smiled. She smiled. The room went quiet for a second too long. Then we changed the subject. After that, she started spending more time on her phone. always typing, always smiling at something I wasn't a part of. Once, I asked who she was talking to, and she said, just a group chat. She even showed me the screen, a few harmless messages from her coworkers. But the way she moved the phone, the way she scrolled too fast, I caught a glimpse of a different thread beneath it. Another chat, another name. She must have seen my eyes flicker because she tilted the screen away with a grin and said, "You're so nosy." I laughed, pretending I didn't notice, but my heart had already noticed. It noticed everything. There's a cruel comfort in pretending you don't see the truth. It keeps your world intact a little longer. I spent weeks convincing myself it was all fine. She was just busy, just stressed. I told myself that if I pushed too hard, I'd look controlling, so I stayed quiet. I watched, and every night, when she turned off her light and whispered, "Good night," I whispered, "Good night back," even though something inside me had already woken up. It was around this time she started talking about the future more often. Vacations we'd take, a house we'd buy, kids maybe. She made it sound real, but there was something hollow in her voice, like she was rehearsing lines she didn't believe anymore. I started to wonder if she was saying them to convince me or herself. Maybe both. Then, one weekend, I noticed something new. She was humming again, a soft tune while doing the dishes. I hadn't heard her hum in months. I wanted to believe it was a good sign, that things were getting better. But then she checked her phone mid-song and her face changed. The music stopped. Whatever message she saw, it pulled her right out of the moment. I stood in the doorway, watching her thumb move fast across the screen. When she noticed me, she jumped. "You scared me," she said, laughing nervously. I smiled and asked who she was texting. "My mom," she said quickly, but her voice cracked on the word mom. That night, lying beside her, I kept thinking about that crack, about the way her eyes darted when she lied, about how much effort she was putting into staying calm. And I realized she was building a new version of herself, brick by brick, lie by lie. And I was watching her do it. There's something haunting about loving someone who's already left you, even if their body is still in the same bed. You start talking softer, moving slower, afraid that any wrong word might push them further away. I remember turning over that night, looking at her sleeping face, and whispering to myself, "Please just stop lying." She didn't hear me. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care. By morning, I decided to let it go. I told myself love meant forgiveness. But deep down, something inside me had started to shift. A quiet, cold voice that said, "If she's hiding something, you'll find it." And I would. The strange thing about lies is how quietly they grow. They don't explode overnight. They drip, slow and steady, until everything around you starts to rot. I used to think my marriage ended the day I found the truth. But it really ended here, in the silence between her answers. It was a Thursday evening when I noticed the receipts. She had left her purse on the couch, open, spilling its contents like she was daring me to look. I wasn't looking for trouble, not consciously. But a small white slip caught my eye. A boutique I'd never heard of. The date printed in bold. The total absurd for someone who claimed she was saving. The clerk's name handwritten at the bottom with a smiley face. I folded it back in and pretended nothing happened. That's what you do when you're not ready to believe you're being played. You become your own accomplice. You help the lie survive. Later that night, she told me she was tired. Her voice was soft, her eyes distant. She crawled into bed without touching me. I lay beside her, pretending to scroll on my phone. The glow lit her face, and for a brief second, I watched her breathe, calm, unbothered. I envied how peaceful liars could sleep. The next few days passed in a blur of tension. She started leaving earlier for work. Her makeup routine changed. New perfume, different lipstick, hair styled like she was auditioning for a life I wasn't invited to. I asked her once if something special was happening at work. She smiled, shrugged, said, "Just taking better care of myself." I nodded, pretending not to notice how she flinched at my questions. Then there was the perfume. A scent I couldn't name, expensive, musky. It stayed on her clothes even after she washed them. I caught it on her jacket one morning, the one she only wore when she claimed to have late meetings. It wasn't hers. That smell belonged to someone else's story. I started paying attention to everything, receipts, schedules, the rhythm of her texts. She began replying slower, fewer emojis, more generic responses, and sometimes she'd ignore messages altogether, only to come home acting sweet, overcompensating. "I missed you," she'd whisper. I'd nod, pretending to believe her, pretending not to taste the guilt on her words. The final trigger came from something as small as a notification sound. One night, her phone buzzed while she was in the shower. Same sound as always, but this time, my name didn't appear. It was a text preview that read, "Got it." Same as before? That same line I'd seen weeks ago. My chest tightened. I picked up the phone, just for a second, but the screen locked. I placed it back exactly how it was, pulse hammering. She came out a few minutes later, humming, her towel wrapped tight. Her eyes flickered to the phone on the counter before she even looked at me. That's when I knew. She wasn't worried about me seeing her naked, she was worried about me seeing her truth. Dinner that night was quiet. I barely tasted the food. Every word she said sounded like a cover-up. Every smile a mask. She asked if I was okay. I said I was just tired. She reached for my hand. I let her, but the warmth between us was gone. It felt like shaking hands with a stranger. The next morning, she left early again. I heard her heels on the hallway floor, her keys jingling, the soft click of the door shutting. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Then, almost without thinking, I got up, went to her side of the closet, and opened her drawer. Her purse was there. I didn't go through it this time. Instead, I noticed something I'd missed before, an envelope tucked beneath a stack of scarves. I pulled it out. Inside were printed receipts, folded neatly, bank withdrawals, transfers, all the same amount, recurring, same name, same date pattern. And at the bottom, the note that changed everything. For you, always. I froze. My throat went dry. The name wasn't one I recognized, not a coworker, not a friend. But I remembered her mentioning it once, months ago, in passing. She said it so casually, like a forgotten detail. Oh, Mark from accounting helped me with that report. I didn't think about it then. But now, every letter in that name felt like poison. I put everything back exactly how I found it, folded the envelope, closed the drawer, and sat on the bed for what felt like hours. My mind played every scene from the last year on repeat. The late nights, the new perfume, the laughter she saved for her phone, the independence she swore she needed. Every lie formed a puzzle, and I was finally seeing the picture. That night, when she got home, I acted normal. I kissed her cheek, asked about her day, even offered to make dinner. She seemed lighter, happy almost. She poured a glass of wine, hummed softly. I asked about work. She talked for 10 minutes straight. All nonsense, all filler. She didn't realize I was memorizing the tone of her voice. The way she blinked too much when she lied. The way she said, "I love you" at the end of the night. Flat, practiced. Later, after she fell asleep, I lay beside her staring at the faint glow of her phone charging. I wasn't angry yet. Not really. I was something worse. Calm. Focused. My heart wasn't racing. It was calculating. I waited 3 more days before doing what I knew I'd do all along. I needed proof. Not guesses, not suspicion. Proof that could speak louder than her lies. She left her laptop at home again, tucked in her bag. I pulled it out and turned it on. The login screen glared at me, demanding a password. I took a guess. Her old one. Denied. Another try. Our anniversary date. Denied again. I sat there, staring, almost laughing. Then I remembered something. Her savings account. The day she made the password, she said, "I'll make one I can remember." I typed the name she used for that account. Enter. The screen unlocked. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the desktop. Then I opened her email. The first few were harmless. Work updates, newsletters. Then I searched one word. Transfer. Dozens of results filled the screen. My hands went cold. I opened one, then another. Each one the same. Automatic payment notifications to the same name, same amount, every 2 weeks. The messages in the memo section varied. For the trip. As promised. Don't forget me. It wasn't about the money. It was about what it meant. It meant she was living a double life, financing a man she swore didn't exist. Maybe it was guilt money. Maybe she was helping him hide something. Or maybe she just liked the thrill of paying for her own sin. When I finally closed the laptop, my reflection stared back from the dark screen. Eyes hollow, jaw tight. I didn't feel the heartbreak people talk about. I felt clarity. Cold, surgical clarity. That night, I didn't confront her. She came home late again, smiling, holding takeout. She handed me the bag and kissed me softly. I kissed her back, gently, and whispered, "Thank you." She smiled, thinking everything was fine. But inside, I had already decided what came next. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't beg. I'd let her dig her own grave, transaction by transaction. And when she was done, I'd bury the truth right beside her trust. Late that night, the apartment was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I sat at the kitchen table, her laptop open in front of me, staring at the screen like it held a map of her soul. I wasn't prying, I told myself. I was collecting evidence, the kind that left no room for excuses. Her hidden account was worse than I imagined. Each entry was methodical, precise, transfers, recurring payments, annotations, all pointing to the same man. Mark. That was his name. Every time I saw it, it felt like a knife twisting in the quiet corner of my chest. She had built a life alongside mine, and I'd been blind. Every joke, every kiss, every mundane morning was a layer of her perfect illusion. I scrolled through months of transactions. There were weekends unaccounted for, hotel charges she never mentioned, dinners at places she said she was working late. It was painstaking, meticulous work keeping track of lies, but I did it anyway because this wasn't about emotion anymore. This was about clarity, control, and a plan. I remembered the way she smiled when she typed in the account password months ago, the private smirk that said, "I know something you don't." That memory stayed with me, cold and sharp. She wasn't clumsy. She wasn't careless. She had chosen her steps deliberately, leading me down this path without ever making me notice. I printed every statement, every email, every confirmation, each page a testament to her betrayal. As I sorted the papers, I realized I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was calm, detached, observing, calculating. This was the part where I held all the power. The next morning, she left for work as usual. She kissed me goodbye, whispering, "See you tonight." I nodded, pretending to smile. She had no idea that the day I had been planning for months had arrived. I followed the routine we had established for years, acting normal, pretending nothing had shifted. I sat in the living room, reviewing the documents again, memorizing the pattern. I could track every payment, every transaction, every lie. I didn't need to accuse her. Accusation would be too weak. I didn't want confrontation. I wanted resolution. I wanted control. By noon, I had a plan. The transfers could be reversed, not all of them, but enough. Enough to make her feel the emptiness, the weight of what she'd done without ever knowing exactly when the hammer would drop. I started moving funds, small amounts, precise, like a chess master positioning pieces across a board. I didn't touch the essentials, just the extras, the money she had been siphoning for Mark. Each movement was deliberate, each step a message she wouldn't understand until it was too late. In the quiet hours of the afternoon, I imagined her coming home, reaching for a statement, expecting the numbers to match her intentions, and finding them hollow. That image made me almost smile. Not with joy, not with triumph, but with a sense of justice, clean and untainted. She returned later than usual. Her face was tired but radiant, oblivious to the truth I had already cemented into her world. She laughed at a joke I didn't hear, lifted a glass of wine to her lips, and sat beside me. I kissed her cheek, said something meaningless about the weather. She didn't notice my calmness. She didn't know she had lost more than just money. She had lost control. Dinner passed quietly. Every smile she offered me felt rehearsed. Every word spoken was carefully measured. I paid attention to each of them, memorized them like a script that would betray her when she least expected it. By the time the dishes were cleared and she retired to the bedroom, I had finalized the last piece of the plan. That night, as I sat at the table alone, I reflected on what I had learned. Her betrayal was methodical, precise. It had grown slowly, hidden behind domesticity and routine. But I had grown too, in awareness, in patience, in strategy. By the time she returned from the bedroom, the groundwork was complete. I had positioned the evidence in a way she would discover naturally, without accusation, without argument. The bank statements, the emails, every transfer, all laid out like a confession she could not escape. I watched her from the kitchen doorway as she paused to check her purse, noticing it was empty. Her brow furrowed, her face tightened. She opened the drawer where she kept the envelope of receipts. It was gone. I had moved it, just like everything else. Her panic was subtle at first, a small hitch in her breath, the way she glanced around the room like someone had stolen the air from her lungs. She didn't know I was there. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I let her unravel quietly, piece by piece. When she finally looked at the laptop, the one she trusted, her eyes widened. The documents she had relied on to prove her innocence now contradicted her entire story. Every transfer, every receipt, every note exposed the truth. Mark's name stared back at her like a shadow she could no longer hide from. I didn't rush her. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't even approach. I merely watched. The quiet devastation in her eyes was enough. It was justice served cold, precise, and utterly controlled. And in that moment, I realized something about revenge. It doesn't need chaos. It doesn't need noise. It only needs timing, patience, and the certainty that the betrayer will understand too late exactly what they have lost. I had given her the stage. I had given her the proof. And soon she would understand. The control she held over our life, over me, over everything we had shared, was gone. All that remained was the waiting. The quiet, inevitable reckoning that would come when she processed everything, when the reality of her deception hit her like a winter storm. And I, for the first time in months, felt the clarity of calm victory. She didn't speak that night. Not a word. After discovering the papers, she sat in stunned silence on the edge of the bed, shoulders hunched, eyes vacant. The room was dead quiet except for the subtle, irregular creak of the floorboard under her heel as she rocked back and forth slightly. It was like watching someone try to breathe underwater. I leaned against the doorframe with a glass of water in my hand and no expression on my face. No anger, no yelling, just presence. And she could feel it, the weight of me, the weight of knowing she had finally lost control. Eventually, she stood, still holding the documents like they were pages torn from a stranger's life. She turned to face me, her mouth opened slightly, as if to say something. A denial, maybe? Or an excuse? Or worse, an apology. I didn't let her speak. I calmly walked into the room, took the glass from my lips, and said in a voice I barely recognized as my own, I took back what was mine. Her eyes darted, searching mine for some piece of softness, some sign of the man she once twisted around her fingers. But I wasn't him anymore. That man died in spreadsheets and transaction logs. Wait, she said, stepping forward. Can we talk? You've been talking, I replied, with him, for months. No, it's not what it looks like. Don't insult me. My voice was flat, cold. You funded your affair with our money. You lied. You stole. You planned this. Tears welled up in her eyes. I watched them with the same clinical detachment I had studied her transfer history. She collapsed onto the bed, holding the stack of proof in her lap like it burned her hands. I swear, I didn't mean to hurt you. I walked over to the dresser and opened the top drawer. Slowly, silently, I reached inside and pulled out the final piece of my revenge. It was a sealed envelope. I dropped it beside her on the bed. What's this? She asked, her voice cracking. Your exit, I said. Inside the envelope were two things. A clean summary of all her transactions, categorized, highlighted, detailed like a forensic audit, and a letter. My letter, not a love letter, not even a farewell, just a list of facts. The amount she had taken, the date the first transfer was made, the number of lies I had documented, and the sentence, you have 1 week to be gone. She opened the letter with trembling fingers. She read it in silence. I waited. Where am I supposed to go? She whispered, as if I owed her a solution. Anywhere but here. She stood, voice rising, trying to reclaim some illusion of control. This is my home, too. No, I said, walking to the closet. I opened it and revealed 2 suitcases already packed. Hers. It was. But you gave it away, one transaction at a time. She gasped, a broken sound I'd never heard from her before. You went through my things? I turned slowly. You went through our life. You carved it open in secret and handed the pieces to a man I didn't even know existed until last week. I didn't love him, she snapped suddenly, the guilt morphing into rage. It was just, I felt trapped. You always handled everything. The bills, the plans, the decisions. I needed space. I raised an eyebrow. So you bought freedom by funding an affair? Silence. She looked away. And that was all I needed. I picked up the suitcases and rolled them to the door. She didn't move. Her hands hung at her sides, fingers twitching, a woman unraveling in real time. I turned to her one last time. There are no police involved, no lawyers, no scandals, just clean closure. She swallowed hard. You're just going to erase me? I paused. And then I said the one thing I'd been holding inside for months. No, I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to forget you. She flinched like I'd slapped her. I stepped past her, leaving her alone with her decisions. As I closed the bedroom door behind me, I heard her fall back onto the bed and sob. But I didn't stay to listen. She left 2 days later. I didn't walk her to the door. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't need to. She sent a message once, a long text begging me to talk. I didn't open it. She tried again a week later, shorter this time. I miss you. I deleted it. A month later, a mutual friend said she'd lost her job. Mark had moved on. She was back living with her mother. Good. Let her rebuild from the ashes she lit with her own hands. As for me, I changed the locks. I scrubbed the apartment of her scent, her presence, her voice. I changed my routine, my music, even my cooking. And slowly, silence became peace. For the first time in years, I was no longer someone's fool. And that was freedom. It's been 6 months. She's gone. Her toothbrush, her scarves, the framed photos we took on vacation, all of it. Erased like chalk from a wet sidewalk. And yet sometimes, late at night, I still expect the door to open. I still expect to hear the jingle of her keys, the sound of her shoes hitting the hardwood, the artificial cheer in her voice as she says, "Hey, I'm home." But she never comes, and I never hope she will. I used to think revenge would feel loud, like breaking glass or yelling through walls. I thought it would come with sirens in my chest and satisfaction in my veins. But the truth is quieter, colder. It feels like standing in an empty room and knowing that silence finally belongs to you. People keep asking me if I miss her, some out of concern, others out of curiosity, as if pain makes a story more valid. I always give the same answer. No. I miss who I thought she was. And that's the cruelest part of betrayal. Not what someone does to you, but what it forces you to do to your own memories. I had to go back and rewrite our entire story with new eyes. The late-night kisses? Calculated. The vacations? Funded with lies. The time she cried in my arms and said she loved me? Performance. All of it, rewritten under the cold light of hindsight. I spent weeks cleaning the apartment, not because it was dirty, but because it still smelled like her. Her shampoo in the drain, her lotion on the bedsheets, her ghost in every drawer. I moved things around. I threw out our bed, got a new couch. I replaced the mugs she bought with plain ones. I even changed the light bulbs. She always liked the warm glow. I went for cold white instead. Less forgiving, more honest. People talk about forgiveness like it's this noble act, some high road only the strong can walk. But sometimes, forgiveness is just a form of surrender, and I'm not in the business of surrender anymore. What I did to her wasn't rage. It wasn't vengeance in the way movies portray it. Dramatic, explosive, cruel. It was methodical, measured. She built her lie brick by brick, and I dismantled it with the same patience. She left me no choice. You don't fund another man's life behind your husband's back and expect kindness when it all comes crashing down. You don't lie to someone's face for months and expect the truth to save you. And you definitely don't steal from someone's heart and expect them to leave the door unlocked. I look at the man I used to be, the one who trusted too easily, loved without caution, forgave without question, and I almost feel sorry for him. Almost. But not quite, because I needed to be that man to become this one. Colder, sharper, free. And in the end, freedom isn't the absence of pain. It's the refusal to carry pain that doesn't belong to you anymore. I didn't owe her anger. I didn't owe her understanding. I owed myself peace. And I took it. Now, when I think about her, which isn't often, I don't see her face or hear her voice. I see a bank statement. I hear the click of a mouse. I remember the quiet satisfaction of reclaiming every dollar she stole, every second she wasted, every lie she breathed into our home. I didn't ruin her life. I just finally made her live it without my forgiveness.